promised me in the summer for a lot of promises and nothing. So far, I'm in the bench 3 games, so I can't say that they keep the promise. And I said that many times before. I had a good relationship with the manager, and out of the sudden, we don't have any relationship. I don't know why. It seems to me, how I see it, it's someone doesn't want to be in the club. It's not acceptable for me, to be fair. Like, I don't know why that's happening always to me. Like, I don't get it. I don't think I'm the problem.
Is 1 or 2 games at a club like Liverpool, Arsenal, United and City, when you lose 1 or 2 games, when you lose 3 or 4, you have to do something. You have to do something collectively and you have to do something individually. You have to recognise the danger that's presenting itself and nip it in the bud, the thin end of the wedge. You can't lose 6 games in 7 if you're Liverpool Football Club, who are the title winners and champions. You can't do that. It's unacceptable. Let's be clear about that. So we can't just sit here now and say, okay, they've got credit in the bank, they'll come good. There's a real... I'm not going to use the word crisis, because crisis suggests that we're talking about managers and players being thrown out of the club. But I'm not at that stage by any stretch of the imagination. But as a collective, I think the manager has to change the style or the system, and he has to help them. And that to me means being more solid in midfield. It means being more solid at the back, and I'm talking about personnel changes. So Kirkes yesterday, obviously, he's struggling. He just is. That Konate's struggling. So do you have to put almost like a little bit like Arsenal have done at times, a little bit like City have done, almost 4 centre-backs in your back 4, and just keep a narrow, tight back 4 and tell everybody that you're adapting and that you're changing and that you're going to mean business to keep clean sheets and stop teams having chances on your goal. And then in midfield, you're going to start to put a narrow 4 in there. And that could be Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch and Wirtz or Gakpo, just tucked in a bit more narrow on that side. And then you might just leave Salah off Ekitike or Salah off Isak, or Isak and Ekitike up front. 2 of them, just leave them up there and make sure they just work back as a 2 and just do something a little bit different. That feels really basic, and it feels like, to be fair, I'm telling Arne Slot, a world-class coach, what to do. But I've seen world-class coaches that I played for, and world-class managers, drop their ego on how we're going to play, style of play, forget the fact that we're a great side and we're a great club. You're not, at this moment in time, a great side and a great club. You're actually, to be fair, easily beatable. So you have to do something different. You have to basically take everybody really seriously, like you always would do, but you take them really seriously and pay them some respect by making sure you change and do something different. So I called on that a few weeks ago, and I said I thought that maybe Joe Gomez should play right back and Robertson should come in at left back, and they should just play as a narrow back 4 and be a little bit more pragmatic. And then each individual player, that's the collective. Something has to change in the collective in terms of how they're going to play. In the individual side of it, you've got to strip yourself right back. Think of it as to the foundations of your house and rebuild your house. That's looking at everything that you're doing, everything that you do, whether that's sleep, whether it's stretching, whether it's eating, whether it's the minutiae of detail. Just do everything better than you're currently doing.
Well, a 6-goal thriller, and we will talk about it with Dean Ashton and Glenn Murray in the studio here. But first, the headlines from that one by a player not even featured in the match. Mo Salah talked about being a substitute yet again. He said, I have done so much for this club down the years, and especially last season. Now I'm sitting on the bench and I don't know why. It seems like the club has thrown me under the bus. That is how I'm feeling. I think it's very clear that someone wanted me to get all of the blame. He then went on to talk about his relationship with Arne Slot, saying, I said many times before that I had a good relationship with the manager, and all of a sudden we don't have any relationship. I don't know why, but it seems to me, how I see it, that someone doesn't want me in the club. And then finally, he talked about his future in that explosive interview after the game, saying, I said to my family, come to the Brighton game. I don't know if I'm going to play or not, but I'm going to enjoy it. In my head, I'm going to enjoy that game because I don't know what's going to happen now. I will be in Anfield to say goodbye to the fans and go to the Africa Cup of Nations. I don't know what is going to happen when I am there. This interview after the game from Mo Salah has made headlines across the world. No surprises, because those are some pretty big statements and comments from him, starting with, his role as a substitute and then his relationship with Slot and his future at Liverpool. What did you make of all of it?
I think you've got to put context into it. I feel as though, personally, He's lost someone in Diego Jota. That can't be hard. And I don't think we give enough emphasis on that point. I think as a player, from a player's point of view, he's lost the right back that he's played the most appearances with ever in his career. So he's got 2 losses, one personal, one professional. He's got a group of players, new players, where there's a lot of question marks flying around. They haven't quite found that right concoction. And then I just feel as though he mentions that he's been criticised. I think that's a very kind of personal reflection on his part, because personally from the outside, I feel as though everyone's been criticised at Liverpool, whether it's him, whether it's the new players, whether it's the manager. And it's a shame, actually, because Arne Slot and him had a really good relationship last year, and I was super impressed with how Arne Slot handled the kind of end of his contract. But for him to come out there and speak like that about the club, about Arne Slot, I really do feel as though frustration has just boiled over.
And you could probably understand that frustration, because this is Mo Salah, one of Liverpool's greatest players. He talks about it in his statement there. I'm sure you can empathise in a way when he's saying, for 3 games in a row I've been benched, for 2 I haven't even been playing. Even though everyone's been criticised, he seems to be, as he said, being thrown under the bus.
Yeah, I think he'll feel disrespected, that's for sure. He'll probably feel as if, even though they won the title last season, of which he was a massive part of, that Arne Slot's only been at the club, a few minutes. He's been there a long time, and how dare he kind of disrespect me in this way, not bring Mo Salah on in a game where they need a goal, sends a big message to Mo Salah and to Liverpool supports from the manager. But ultimately, Salah's been incredibly selfish with his reaction. When you're at a club like Liverpool, when you are playing in a team sport like football, and you're trying to be harmonious, this is certainly not going to help. I mean, I can't imagine this week what Liverpool's training ground is going to be like, what it's going to be like between him and the manager and the other players. Some might not be particularly happy with his comments, and even though it might have been the heat of the moment, he knows what reaction this will get.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has been very calculated in terms of the, clapping the fans at the end on his own, giving an interview when Mo Salah doesn't really do interviews, doing one after that game, and saying things like, I've told my family to come to the Brighton game.
Yeah, like you say, he doesn't do many interviews, and I feel as though when he does speak to the media, he speaks and it lands, because it holds weight when he doesn't do much. Again, he's correct in what he says about not going to be around for a while. How long that is, who knows? Obviously, he feels very passionately about the situation. I'm sure that he's raised these concerns internally, probably felt like he wasn't getting anywhere, so he felt as though he had to externally and use that power. But I just wonder how this goes down in Liverpool with the fans and the football club. Me, personally, I think this situation is rescuable. I don't think it's the end for Mo Salah, like with a full stop after it. I think this situation can be rectified with a bit of patience and communication, but it depends if both parties want to rectify it.
I think we're also wondering, what's it going to be like in that dressing room? What's it going to be like on the plane to Milan ahead of the Champions League this week? I mean, have you guys ever been in a situation like that? Have you yourself done it? Has a teammate done it?
I remember being at West Ham when Craig Bellamy was very vocal and would come back in, but to be fair to him, he didn't care what we thought. But it's what's interesting, even in these sort of situations, it will either be a bit awkward or the players laugh about it and make it a bit of a joke. So it would be interesting to see how that lands, as Glenn says, in the dressing room. But ultimately, I think his demeanour says he doesn't want to be there, and it might not be rectifiable from his perspective. That's how I feel about it.
And it puts Arne Slot in such a difficult situation as well, because he's made the big and bold decision to drop Mo Salah. He's not played him in 2 games, as you mentioned, games where he needed a goal, especially like the one against Leeds. Now they go to Inter Milan. Now there is that Brighton game before Salah goes off to AFCON. What does he do? Does he play him as a reaction to this? Does he leave him on the bench and risk perhaps Salah not returning from AFCON to Liverpool?
I mean, this is a complete guess, but I'm sure it'll take a bit of kudos from up above, see what they think about the situation, see how they want it managed. But I feel as though Arne Slot now has the autonomy to be able to not play him. I don't think you can buckle as a manager when a player rants like that to the media. I don't think you can show weakness and just put him back in, because that shows that the player is stronger than you are. So I fully expect Arne Slot not to pick him. Listen, what the message is from up above, who knows?
You're saying the situation is rescuable from Liverpool's point of view doesn't necessarily mean there's a full stop. Does Salah make the best 11 of Liverpool currently?
Listen, regardless of how good you are or how well you've performed, and listen, he has been one of the Premier League greats, he's been one of Liverpool's greats, without any doubt, that isn't in question. But recent performances, everyone gets judged. This game doesn't sit still for any man. Yes, it's give him credit, it's give him a bit more time, but ultimately his performances, and I think he'll probably admit it, and this is probably part of the outcome, they haven't been up to scratch or what we would expect and what he would expect.
Yeah, he's probably looking around and saying, well, the same could be said of a lot of my teammates. Why me? And I suppose that goes back to what you had said about the disrespect that, you know, he might be feeling and could be feeling. Do you think Salah makes the best 11 right now?
I think he was right to drop him at the time that Arne Slot did, because his performances weren't anywhere near. His body language wasn't particularly great. He wasn't helping defensively in that right back area that was such an issue. Teams were targeting that area.
Has he ever?
No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. But ultimately, you know, from the manager's perspective, I don't think it was the worst decision to drop him. But now it feels like he's really making a point when the defence has been pretty terrible and they haven't been dropped, Konate, Van Dijk, etc. So that's then when you start to think as a player, is it just, am I being targeted internally? And we are inherently selfish. You have to be to make it anyway. And he is that real elite player that's got so much drive. I think he feels he's been so disrespected. I don't really think there's probably a way back now.
Yeah, that kind of winner's mentality and the hunger and the ego that comes with being a player that has the stature of Mo Salah. Is that a little bit what we're seeing here, do you think?
Yeah, without doubt. And do you know what, we talk about him being on the bench. I remember when Ronaldo got left on the bench by Ten Hag and he brought him on with 3 minutes, and that was disrespectful. So you can't win sometimes. Like, when do you bring Mo Salah on? When will he be happy to be brought on? This, I think, and I hope for the Premier League's good, I think he gets in Liverpool's first 11 in his pomp, without any doubt. He's a world-class athlete and a world-class football player. I hope for the good of the Premier League and the good of Liverpool that they can manage to rescue this situation, because it would be awful to see him leave under a cloud after what he's achieved.
What we do have is a Mo Salah heading off to AFCON under this cloud, and I'm sure that Egypt will be very happy to have him show up determined to prove himself. We'll keep an eye on that situation very closely. Everyone around the world will be, of course. So we still remember Mo Salah's last interview. I'm more out than in. He doesn't do any, he only does headlines, does Mo Salah.
Right, some massive breaking news reaching us from Liverpool. Matter of hours after their 3-3 draw at Leeds United, Mo Salah has delivered a bombshell interview to journalists, and within that interview, and this is in the mix zone after the game, where he's willingly spoken, he said, for example, quotes like this: "It seems like the club has thrown me under the bus. That is how I'm feeling. I think it's very clear that someone wanted me to get all of the blame." And in terms of his relationship with Arne Slot, he says that the relationship has broken down. There's no relationship between us. It was a very good relationship. Now, all of a sudden, there is no relationship. And when asked, what do you do with the situation now? He said, "It is not acceptable for me. I don't know why this is happening to me. I don't get it. I think if this was somewhere else, every club would protect its player. How I see it now is like you throw Mo under the bus because he is the problem in the team now. But I don't think I am the problem. I have done so much for this club." The questions continue, as you would expect, in the mix zone, with incredible interest in what Mo Salah is saying. And he said, "Is this your last game for Liverpool?" Well, he said, "In football, you never know. I don't accept the situation." And again, he reiterates, "I have done so much for the club." We'll go back through more of these quotes from Mo Salah because they are really explosive. They honestly are. But in terms of our own coverage here at Sky Sports, Jamie Redknapp also discussed Salah's future on Saturday Night Football for that 3-3 draw against Leeds before these quotes emerged. And this is what Jamie had to say.
He's probably thinking, why am I not starting? The facts are his form hasn't been good enough. Now, I don't foresee a situation where Liverpool, because I think they would have so much respect for him that they'll be actively trying to move him. I think if he were to happen, it's accelerated really quickly, and if something were to happen as quickly as January, it will come more from him.
Could that happen with the African Cup of Nations, though, going on? Because he's going to disappear after that
He's going to go away, I think, next week. Is it after?
Week on Monday.
A week on Monday. Anything can happen in football. If he really decides and he speaks to his agent and they go, look, it's not sustainable. I don't want to.
Do you think that would be the best solution for everybody then, if that happened in January?
I don't necessarily think in January. I think we've got to just let this settle. But I don't foresee that he'll see out his 2 years of his contract. I think it might be more in the summer if he were to go. When Mo's at his best, of course you want him in that team because he gives you a better balance. Conor Bradley as well, I think will probably say he'd rather have him out there. I think if you ask Dominic Szoboszlai, does he want to play right wing? No, he wants to play as a central player.
Let's just recap some more of these quotes. So just to remind you, these were given in the mix zone after the game at Ellen Road. This is where the players pass through, journalists try and grab a word with them. Mo Salah doesn't often speak, but on this occasion he chose to, and he gave some just absolutely fascinating comments to the journalists that were there. So they asked him what he was thinking sat on the bench. He said, I didn't know what to say. It's funny, I couldn't believe it. And then when they pressed him on what he couldn't believe, they said that I'm sitting on the bench for 90 minutes. The third time on the bench. I think for the first time in my career, I'm very, very disappointed, to be fair. I've done so much for this club down the years and especially last season. And asked whether this whole situation hurt him. And he said, absolutely. After what I've done for the club, it really hurts. You can imagine, really, after going from home to the club, you don't know if you're starting. I know the club too well. I've been here many years. Interestingly, he has mentioned another of our own pundits here at Sky Sports because he's name-checked Jamie Carragher. He says, tomorrow Carragher's going to go for me again and again, and that's fine. That is potentially a reference to something that Jamie Carragher said recently, where he said that Mo Salah needs to speak up with Liverpool in such a difficult spell of form recently, with all of those defeats in the last few weeks and months as champions of England defending their title. And he was asking Mo Salah to stand up and try and represent the club, because he said the only time that Mo Salah speaks is if he's won the Player of the Match award or if he wants to renew or is close to a contract renewal. Is this situation impossible to solve? I cannot say it's impossible, went on Salah, but from what I feel, I've done so much for the club. I love the fans and the club so much. I don't know what is going to happen next. And then it continues around this notion of him being thrown under the bus and whether someone really wants him out. So he was asked, when you say about someone wanting you out, who? Salah said he didn't know. Then it was put to him, would it be potentially the sporting director? And he rejected that. He didn't really want to talk anymore, but he said, no, don't put the words in my mouth. From the situation I see, that's it. And had anyone communicated, explained this situation to you? I did, but I don't see an explanation. I knew yesterday I wasn't going to play and that's it, so take it and swallow it and go home. He says that Arne Slot knows that he's disappointed. He knows my feeling. And then it gets on to his relationship with the Liverpool boss. Has the relationship broken down? And he's been very, very clear about this. Yes, there's no relationship between us. It was a very good relationship. And now, all of a sudden, there is no relationship. Has something changed behind the scenes? And then he said, you guys know better than me. I don't know. So a wide-ranging set of comments there from Mo Salah, who, as we mentioned before, isn't necessarily someone you hear from a huge amount in the media, in the press. But given the fact that he started this game on the bench for the third game in a row, first of all, talking about how he is deeply disappointed, that he's been thrown under the bus. It seems like the club has thrown me under the bus. These are direct quotes from Mo Salah. That is how I am feeling. I think it is very clear that someone wanted me to get all of the blame. So he's pointing the finger at the club, saying that someone essentially wants him to be the fall guy for Liverpool's current form, and his relationship with the manager Arne Slot that has gone from very good to non-existent, and that this is not acceptable for him. He doesn't understand why it's happening to him. Obviously, we heard it a little bit there when Jamie Redknapp was talking about his potential future, but this really is the clearest indication yet that Mo Salah wants to move on because it's not going the way he would want it to at Liverpool Football Club with these benched appearances. Is Saudi still on the table? Was one of the quotes that was asked, was one of the questions that was asked him. He said, I don't want to answer this question because the club is going to take me to a different direction, suggesting perhaps that the Saudi Pro League isn't his next destination. So yes, it's quite clear here in these quotes that Mo Salah is pointing the finger at Liverpool, not happy with his situation right now, not just not starting, but that he's given so much to this football club, that he loves this football club, that he loves the fans, but he's incredibly disappointed that his relationship with Arne Slot has totally broken down. But for me, the key quote here, it seems like the club has thrown me under the bus. That is how I'm feeling. I think it is very clear that someone wanted me to get all of the blame.
Welcome back to Sport Lab. And we have massive breaking news coming out of Anfield. Mohamed Salah has given an explosive interview that has shaken Liverpool Football Club and cast huge doubt over his future. His comments after the 3-3 draw against Leeds have stunned fans, reporters, and even members inside the club. Let's get into everything he said, what it means, and what might happen next. Fresh off Liverpool's dramatic 3-3 draw at Elland Road, Mohamed Salah spoke to journalists, and he did not hold back. The Liverpool star claimed the club has, in his words, thrown me under the bus, adding that his once strong relationship with manager Arne Slot has completely collapsed. Salah revealed he was in disbelief after being left on the bench for a third consecutive match, and said he doesn't know why Slot refused to bring him on, even as Liverpool squandered their lead twice. He said, I have done so much for this club, now I'm sitting on the bench and I don't know why. It seems like the club has thrown me under the bus. Someone doesn't want me in the club. Salah added that he was promised certain things during the summer, but right now, those promises have not been kept. When asked directly whether his relationship with Slot had broken down, Salah answered clearly. Yeah, there's no relationship between us, all of a sudden there is no relationship. This is especially shocking given Salah signed a new deal at the end of last season and repeatedly said he had a strong bond with the manager. According to him, that bond has suddenly disappeared without explanation. Salah travels to the Africa Cup of Nations with Egypt on December 15th, meaning next Saturday's clash with Brighton may be his final match for the club, at least before AFCON, and possibly forever. He told reporters he has asked his family to come to the Brighton match, adding, I will be at Anfield to say goodbye to the fans. I don't know what is going to happen when I am there. When asked explicitly whether this could be his final Liverpool appearance, Salah replied, In football you never know. I don't accept this situation. Salah, now 33 and heavily linked with a January move to the Saudi Pro League, has officially planted the seeds of doubt over whether he will return to Liverpool after AFCON. This is a seismic moment. Liverpool are already under pressure after a turbulent run of results, and now face the real possibility of losing one of the greatest players in their modern history, not at the end of the season, but potentially mid-season. The dressing room dynamic, the club's January plans, and Arne Slot's authority are all now under the spotlight. This story is far from over, but one thing is clear. Mohamed Salah has opened a door that Liverpool might not be able to close. With AFCON around the corner and tensions rising at Anfield, his future is more uncertain than ever. We'll keep you updated as this massive story unfolds. This has been Sport Lab, your home for breaking football news, drama, and deep analysis. Stay tuned.